Let's just get into it and go.
Welcome back, everybody. Embrace the Storm podcast. Me, Brenden and Gentlemen, with my lovely co-host, Jeremy Weens. And beautiful, mysterious, handsome, whatever you want to go with. Welcome to another edition of Embrace the Storm podcast. We're hanging out and... I'd like to say coming to you live. Maybe one day we'll do this live.
One day we'll do it live.
Yeah, we've talked about it.
Yeah, we will. We'll do
on
it.
Instagram or Facebook.
Instagram.
Yeah. So we were just talking before a little bit about spontaneous action. That's not our theme for the night, but it'll tie in a little bit.
It will, yeah. Sorry.
Come on now. I'm supposed to do all this preset before.
I know, right?
But we were talking. You're a big fan of spontaneous action, and you know what? Let's pause for a second. How was your week?
My week was a little bit, it was a little bit slower. I was not feeling 100%, and there's a number of days this week where I got up, I went to the gym, I went to work, I worked about 5-6 hours, and I came home in the afternoon, and like 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, and I just I need to take a nap, and I just thought like a 20-minute nap, also like 2 hours later I'd wake up.
Holy smokes.
And that happened a couple days, so not that I felt bad, just my energy level was just gone, right? And
yeah.
so it's kind of been like that. Then I'd get up and I'd finish off the day of work, and I often had meetings in the evening, so I kind of knew okay, well, I got this happening in the evening, so I have like a couple hours here, and I never thought anything of it. I thought 20-minute nap and I'll be fine, but well, I took up my whole time, and I was like, okay, now I got to quickly rush in and get what I need done.
Back in kindergarten, having a nap time.
Well, but even after a nap, it was like, it's like, do I cancel? But I'm like, no, I gotta go.
You got things to do.
Yeah.
That's the way it goes.
How about you? How was your week?
My week was a little bit weird this week. So at work this week, I was in Brenden Monday night, Tuesday morning. At Brenden Ag Days is a big farm agriculture show that goes on every year, and of course where I work, we're part of that show. But my sales guy was down in Montana at one trade show. My boss, GM, owner of the company, he was down in Kansas doing some show work. And so then myself, I went to set up the booth on Monday. Tuesday morning it started, I was there, but then got relieved by my production manager, who came down and did the last couple of days. So we were kind of all over the place. So then when I got back on Wednesday, because I came back Tuesday night, so Wednesday for work, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it's been a weird kind of long week in a way. Yeah. Just because it was broken up by being gone Monday, Tuesday. So, yeah, kind of a weird sort of shuffle week with a bunch of people being gone. And, just because people are gone, work still needs to happen. Just because you nap, work still needs to happen. So
yeah, it doesn't mean you take the day off. You just get back to it, right?
Yeah. So otherwise, it was a super good week, just weird and busy. Yeah. And now we're here on a Friday. That's when we normally record, for those of you wondering. They don't always get posted on Friday. And for all of those you following along, I had to post an episode kind of with my tail between my legs just yesterday, because I forgot we recorded.
Well, we actually, you know what? We were going to book our first recording last week, but we decided to go a week early because...
Is that what happened?
That's exactly what happened.
Is that why my head got messed up?
It must be, because we also... I know right around New Year's, I was ready to go, so so we kind of messaged and we're like, hey, let's do this, right? And
I was too.
We jumped ahead. We jumped a week early, and so
that's must have messed with my head or something. Because I messaged Jared all of a sudden, was like, dang, we're recording today, but also I haven't posted, so I should probably do that. So that's up now on YouTube and Spotify, and you can go check out that episode when you hear this one. So listen to this one, go back and listen to the other one, get caught up.
Yeah.
So before the show, before we hit record, we were talking kind of about different things in life, and you were saying, hey, you know how I like spontaneous action, which I know you do. You did something this week with spontaneous action, so tell our 5 loyal listeners about your spontaneous action.
So I think, well, our episode is going to be about do, right?
Yes.
So, and I think we kind of established that just based on this morning I did a post on, I was at the gym, and And I was just like, man, I haven't posted leaving the gym in a while and whatever, or at the gym. And so I just did a thing. And I just said, do what makes you money, do what makes you successful, do what makes you happy, do whatever. Like crush the day, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of why we're starting off with the do, right? Is and that wasn't a thought out thing. That's just kind of this is where we're going, right? And it was on my heart, it was on my mind, and it's just like, let's do this, right? And so,
and I think that one of the cool things about doing this podcast, again, sorry to interrupt, Gary Vee has this joke, interrupted with Gary Vee. I think that this interrupted with Brenden. But the thing is cool with this show is sometimes we plan. Like before we go on, I've kind of got a plan. We've got a plan. We have some notes. Or at least I have notes. I have notes. Jerry's just along for the ride. But sometimes there's something that happens either in the morning or the afternoon when we're going to go, and it just sparks an idea. And on the fly, we decide that's what we're talking about. And that's what happened today with me. I saw your post and connected with it. We'll talk about that more.
Yeah.
But we're going back to spontaneous action here.
So this last week I was talking with, the week before actually, I was talking with one of the guys I work with, and he was talking about how he's going to get a real estate coach, and we were discussing that a little bit. And I've done that in the past, and it was not good for me. Like it wasn't a good fit, right?
Yeah.
And so I just
coaches are good, but you got to find the right fit.
Right, and I learned that lesson, right? And I did that in my first year. I spent a lot of money on somebody who wasn't a good fit.
I remember that actually.
Yeah. And it was, you know what? And so that was kind of one of those situations where like, man, like, and he's talking about doing this, and I'm like, that's a lot of money to spend, and he's in his first year, and I'm almost like, I'm like, are you sure you want to spend that money on it, right? But he's like, yeah, you know what? If I look at it, the top people always have coaches. As soon as he said that, I was like, go for it, right? And you know what? In my head, I was like, yeah, you know what?
You sound like that old guy.
Yeah.
Who's like, social media doesn't work for our business. This is how we do it. Like, no, you don't need a coach.
I'll get back to that. I actually have a funny story of a phone call I got today about that. But no, but like my thought was like I waste a lot of money. Like I don't want, this guy's new to the business too, and I didn't want him to waste a lot of money on the same thing I did, right? So, but he's like, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm like, I turned around, like, go for it, man, all in, do it, right? Encourage them, right? So if you're gonna go all in, right? So, but it made me think is like, what all the top guys, the big ones that are going to the next level, a lot of them have coaches.
Yep.
Now, I had somebody I was working with, I mentioned a little while back, right? But I realized I kept having to chase them, and I didn't like that either. So that guy was, I ditched him because it just wasn't a good fit.
Yeah.
And then I saw this guy post. This guy I actually know. And I called him up. I'm like, let's go for coffee, right? And we sat there, and we went for coffee for an hour and a half. And I was like, what are you gonna do, right? And like, and first of all, it was just talking, getting to know each other, right? So nothing about business, nothing about anything. Yeah. And we just had a great conversation. Then it came down. Then I was just like, so tell me a little bit about what you're doing, right? And I got really interested. It's really invested. And so now, instead of going for a real estate coach, I'm actually going for a performance coach. Oh. So we're a little bit different skew, because I think I in my head, as much as I want to up my real estate game, I want to up my whole life game, right?
Yes.
And so there's part of it that really resonated with elevating to, like, and there's going to be a big real estate aspect, but there's going to be different aspects that we're going to be talking about. And he's like, where do you need help with? And I was like, here. So, like, whether it's calling people, whether it's going out and making sure I'm working my system properly, whether it's doing that, right? And I said, all that stuff comes from is probably that lack of confidence, or that self-doubt, or that stuff that's kind of bogging me down somewhere in the background. Yeah. So I mean, I could get all the systems in place. Oh yeah, call X amount of people a day, do this, do that.
But if you got something stuck
right
in here, 100%.
So I was like, okay, I'm not ready for a real estate coach, but I think a performance coach get me to that next level mentally, emotionally. Then I think I'll be able to, then if I want to switch to a real estate coach, I could do that, or I could just like elevate and keep going, right? So I ended up hiring him on the spot, and we went, And so he sent me this big thing today. I haven't even had a chance to look at it yet.
Yeah.
It's later this evening.
You want to share publicly who it is? Or no?
Yeah, sure. Scope. I don't even know the whole thing. Scope.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, Joel Nedowin.
Nedowin?
Nedowin. There we
Yep.
go. Sorry.
So did you meet with Joel?
Oh yeah, I've known him for a few years, so that's why I was like
So I love Joel, and I can't remember the other gentleman's name, but he's
Scott or something. No,
No,
not Scott.
The owner of Scope. He and
Yeah.
I have had several conversations. He's a very good man as well. So I think you're in good hands, and Joel's got a good skill set to unlock some stuff and hold you accountable. And like we talked about on the last episode, just having someone hold you accountable sometimes
It's gonna be huge.
is a huge, huge thing. So when you say, "Hey, I'm going to make those calls," or "Hey, I'm going to put those systems in," just on a surface level,
Yeah.
you're now going to have someone in your corner going, "Did you do it?"
Yeah. Well, not only that, so it's also a good opportunity, and it's kind of a win-win for us, right? Because he's used to doing more corporate, multi, right? And now I'm going to be the first individual, one-on-one coaching, right? So this
He's
is going to
probably
be,
excited about that.
you know what he is? He is absolutely like, I mean, the amount of like emails he's like, oh, I'm so excited about this, and
Yeah.
and like if you get to know him, get to know his heart, like he is just like,
He's a really good man.
oh,
Yeah.
I was so looking forward to this. I resonate so well with talking with him,
Yeah.
and
His energy is awesome.
and he's like, here, you got to read this book, right? And
Yeah.
so, and it just so audible, and also he's like, hey, so here's those two books that I told you to read. I'm like, yeah, I'm halfway through the first one, and he's like, "You met with me like 2 days ago." I'm like, yeah, I'm like,
I do
but
driving.
I drive, I listen, I don't,
Yeah.
yeah, right. So I'm like, he's like, oh man, this is gonna be good. This, I'm like, yeah, like we're it's time to elevate, right?
I
So
think the big thing is when you work with corporate, and I'm not saying this about all corporate, but a lot of corporate is you get buy-in from one or two people.
Yeah.
But then you get the rest. You're just going through the motions because they're supposed to.
Yeah.
When you get someone like you, who's invested, who's all in, because you paid the money, you're all in.
Yeah.
Like you're going for it. That's a big deal. And so the energy that you bring to the table, obviously because I know you, but the energy you bring to the table is phenomenal. And so just feeding off each other on the energy is going to be a big thing too for both of you. So that's super exciting. I can't wait to hear what comes out of that. Spontaneous action, just hiring a coach on the spot.
well, what's my words of the year? Massive action, right?
Yeah.
So this was one of those things. Well,
Out of your comfort zone too.
yeah, like, and that was one of those things where, and so the guy I was talking to, and I told him, you inspired me. I went and got myself a coach. He's like, what? Like, I'm like, oh yeah. And me and him are,
reaction, right?
well, and me and him are very much like, we are gonna, like, we both have very high goals this year. And he's new, but he's very good, right?
Yeah.
And he's been producing very well, right? So me and him, we're gonna bounce off each other. We work kind of right beside each other,
I
so
love that.
it's gonna be one of those things where we're gonna,
I love that.
we're pretty pumped about this,
Yeah.
and we're going different, coming from different directions. I have a little bit more experience. I have a little bit more, but he has that drive as well. Like I have that drive. Like I think we're gonna go well together. So
I love that, and I think too. The Grant Cardone back in the day, I don't know if he still has it, but him and Jared had a show called Young Hustlers.
I remember.
The whole thing was it's not about your age,
Yeah.
it's about your mentality. And so I think the cool thing there is you're both young hustlers, even though you might be older, but you both have that passion and that energy and that drive to get things done. And so I think that's really awesome to have each other to kind of play off of. That's awesome. I can't wait to hear what comes of it. Using that as a segue, I guess, to do's. So the reason why I said this to you when you were like, hey, what are some of the things we're going to go through tonight or talk about, was, to me, it was a control thing. That was the message you were putting out. You can go see it on Jerry's social media. Was do what you can. Right? Do the workout, do the work, do the thing. To me, maybe you meant it differently, but to me it was take control of what you can do. Don't worry about what you can't do.
Yeah.
That was what resonated with me. So I wanted to spend some time talking tonight, getting your thoughts on that. Because, again, we've touched on it before. You've been through a lot in life. Just with everything you've had going on, you've been through a lot in business in the last couple of years. What does that mentality mean to you? Or what has it come to mean to you? Because there's been a lot of things outside of your control that back in the day you would have tried to control.
Yeah. I think sometimes letting go, like one of the biggest things is letting go what you can't control. And that when you realize that, okay, I can't control the weather,
Mhm.
but I can control what I do, right? I can control how I act in the weather. I can control my attitude. I can control my actions,
Yeah.
and I can control my reactions, right? And so part of the post was do what makes you money, do what makes you feel successful, do what makes you happy, right? And it's about, and I think when you're doing things that make you money, make you happy, make you successful, make you
Yeah.
feel that way, people are like, oh, it could be selfish. Well, no, but it maybe if you're doing it, but it can be selfish. But being selfish to some degree is one of the selfless things you can do, because while you're doing that and you're focused on what you're doing,
Mhm.
you're gonna bring those around you up with you, right?
Yeah.
And so I used to have a very big mindset of selfishness and like, oh, you got to be humble, you got to be back, and it's not about bragging, but it's about producing, right? And about, I often found we often equate humble with limiting yourself, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's a difference, right?
Yeah.
You can do well, like, and I could push myself to the next level. I could push to be the next income bracket, the next sales leader, the next best sewer in the world, the next chess champion, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Push yourself to be the next best. That doesn't mean you're viewing anybody else as less than
Yeah.
you are. You are
Yeah.
you're still good. You can connect with people. You can still resonate with people, but you're just taking yourself to that different level, right? And
Yeah.
it doesn't make you better than anybody else. It just means you're built different. You're doing different, right?
One of the things I think when you were talking, one of the things that came to mind was some of the people I follow online. People will say, "Oh, you think you're better than everybody else,"
Right.
and jokingly, some of them will be like, "Of course I do." But I think more so what it is they've stacked enough wins in their life, and yet stuff, money in the bank, cars in the driveway, whatever it is, it's kind of a scoreboard of wins,
Right.
right? But there are other wins as well with family and God and all these other things. But I think what happens is we don't necessarily think we're better than anybody when they get to that level. I'm not at that level, but when they get to that level, it's the fact that they've stacked all these wins. They have this self confidence that's undeniable.
Yeah.
And so when they walk into a room so self confident, it comes off as arrogance or I'm better than you or whatever. But they don't mean it like
Yeah.
that at all. At least with some of the people.
Well, there's some. I mean,
And
there's
you're always
always,
gonna have jerks, no
yeah,
matter what level.
absolutely, right? But the good ones, the ones that actually are worth something,
Yeah.
they don't see themselves as, oh, I'm better than anybody else under, like,
Yeah.
anybody that's working for me, I'm better than you. No,
Yeah.
no, they see themselves as, you know what, one, I have a job to do.
Yeah.
So there's an element of knowing their place,
Yeah.
but still treating them like a good, like a person. You can still be a decent human being,
Yeah.
even though you're in a
You
different
treat
role.
the CEO and the janitor the same way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
100%. And I think so along with that is do what you can with what you have. Excuse me, where you are.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so do what you can, right? Is do that workout. Maybe you're not lifting 400 pounds, you're doing one push up. That's what you can do. Right? You haven't moved your body in a while, go for a walk. You can do.
Yeah.
Right? Make a few extra calls. You can do that. It's in control. And what's something you said sparked that idea. I don't know who says it, but 90% of life is life is 10% what happens to you,
Yeah.
90% how you react to it.
Charles Swindoll, isn't it?
I don't know.
I know he said it too, so I don't know.
But that made me think about that quote because it's so true. The weather can be bad, but I can leave earlier. That's how I react.
Yeah.
Right? The weather can be bad, so my drive's gonna suck, so I'm gonna be grumpy about it. That's my choice.
Yeah. Oh, I got cut off now, though everything's ruined.
Right, exactly. And now
Yeah.
I'm red faced because I'm screaming at the
Yeah.
windshield. kind of thing. But that to me, that post to me was about controlling what you can't control, not worrying about what you can't control. You know, God says, worry about today, tomorrow will worry about itself.
Absolutely.
Like, we have enough going on in life right now. We don't need to worry about tomorrow. We don't need to worry about what we can't control.
Yeah,
We just need to focus on what we can do. And that's how we stack wins,
absolutely.
right? You can control that you go to the gym. You do that, it's a win. You can control that you're going to fold some laundry today. You fold some laundry, that's a win.
Yeah.
The more of those wins you stack, the more self-confidence you build. Right?
Absolutely, 100%. When you can keep stacking wins, no matter what they are. And so this is something which book is it? I just finished a book at, I can't even remember the name, but I just finished a book and they said at the end of the day, they write 3 wins that they had and 3 wins that they're going to have tomorrow.
Interesting.
And but they said, make them absolutely easy.
Oh.
Make them like, so one of the wins is go to the gym, right? Make them simple. Something that you know you're going to do. Spend an hour with my kids. Bang.
Yes.
Make 5 calls. Bang, right? Something easy and simple that you know you're going to do. So every night when you write, you go back and you look over what you wrote and you're like, hey, I did this. 3 wins. And you're like, hey, I won today, right? And then the next day you write, oh, so these are my wins. Oh, you know what? So you got 6 things that you already are thinking about winning, right?
Yeah.
And then you're like, tomorrow, oh, I'm going to win this, I'm going to win this, and I'm going to win this. So your mindset already going to bed is, I'm winning. And I started doing that this last week, and I was just like, what a different, I never thought about that aspect of it.
Do you think, though, because that flies in the face a little bit of, set big goals, set 10x goals, that kind of thing, do you think that over time what happens is those 3 things for tomorrow get bigger?
Absolutely. Oh, totally. And it doesn't take long. It doesn't take weeks to get bigger. They slowly start getting big because you're like, oh, go to the gym. I do that
because you build that muscle of winning.
Yeah. I want to win a little bit more. What can I win a little bit more at? Oh, well, you know what? Not 5 calls. I make 10 calls.
It becomes addicting.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I'm not even going to go to the gym. Yeah. I'm going to watch. I'm going to eat according to my meal, or according to this, I'm going to eat 90% of what, or 80% of what I said I was going to do, right? Yeah. You know what? Well, hey, there you go, right? 80% is better than 0%. So the next day it could be 81, it could be 85, but it's 80 until you know, and you know you're going to do that. And you're like, hey, you know what? I may not have got 100, but I sure got 80, and that's a win, right? So that kind of concept of, and then you can grow that, right? It's like, I've been stuck at 80 for a while. I bet you I could challenge myself to go to 90. Whatever the thing is.
And that's my one fly in the ointment with this mentality is, went to the gym, went to the gym, went to the gym, went to the gym. At some point, you got to turn that page. You gotta up the game a little bit.
And you will, and you'll want to, but you'll be like, well, I do that all the time. So that's just muscle memory at this point. So what else could I add to it, right? And for me, one of the things is devotions, journaling. So, right, if that's what I'm doing every day, okay, that's going to be my win if I can do that. And it actually, one night I was tired. I was like, oh man, I don't want to do this, but I'm not going to write tonight. And then I was like, oh, if I don't do it, I don't count it as a win. And as funny as that might sound, is like, who cares? I'm the only one who knows what it is. But I went and I did it just because it was on there. After that, I could check all 3 off, and I was like, bam.
So, I don't know if I agree with this strategy. Y'all should let us know in the comments or DM us or something. Let us know what you think of this.
Love to hear about it.
But I don't know if I agree wholeheartedly with this. But what I will tell you is my spreadsheet is kind of the similar thing.
Right.
More in depth. But similar thing. And there are things I do because I want to make sure that I get the point
right
on the board versus, oh, it's late, I don't really want to do it. And then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, but then I don't get the point on the board.
Yeah.
You know?
Well,
so then I do it.
The reason why he says 3 is because often if we do 5 or 10,
it's too
many. And now you're missing, right? Now you're feeling, well, I got 80% of my goals. Whereas 3 is obtainable. You make them simple enough that you know you're going to do them.
Yeah.
And
it's the same reason why Andy Friseau's power list is only 5.
Yeah, right.
Because he's like, if you get
that's
these 5 things
still
down,
coming in. That should be here in the next, I don't know, couple.
Oh, the new mental toughness book.
Well, that, and I got the power. I did. Yeah,
you
so that's supposed to be coming in too.
Did it come as like a group, or you just bought both?
So nope. What ended up happening is with a couple of guys that were all in on this, and I think I ordered extra books, so might have that one kicking around yet. So but we're going to be going through that together.
Yeah.
But I'm like, hey, if we're ordering this, can we just throw this on top?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, let's do it, right? So
That's cool. Yeah. So the power list is 5 things for exactly that same reason.
okay. See, and I didn't even know. All I do is he has this thing, and it's supposed to be really good. And I'm like, let's just do it. Add it on.
So my coach, he recommends 2 different journals or 2 different
right.
to do things, and that's one of them is the power list
Okay.
journal, because it's very to the point, very, very achievable to do kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you can start stacking those wins, start winning the days.
It's very easy to look at your day and see. I made 4 calls instead of 5. I wasn't able to sit down for supper because I had to rush out for this meeting, right? So I didn't hit my goal. I wasn't able to, whatever it is, right? I didn't hit my goal. I didn't do this, and it can feel overwhelming and feel like, oh man, what a loss of a day. And those days can get frustrating. And when especially, you can stack losses faster than you can stack wins, if you want to think of it, right? But how many of us go to bed, and how many of my life did I spend stacking losses, laying there at night, regretting all the things I didn't do? And how often did that keep me up at night, right? Versus now I'm going to bed, I'm stacking wins, and I'm like, man, like, I actually did something good.
On the flip side, though, and this is a bigger conversation I want to have yet on this episode, but so then I don't hit my goals today, my to-dos. Then I don't hit them again the next day. And then eventually I'm just sliding back into that pattern of just living life. Mediocre, middle of the road, force of average getting after me, and I'm letting it win. Right? Sort of that slippery slope of, oh, I won, now I didn't win.
Yeah.
Now I won, now I didn't win. Now I didn't win and didn't win. And before you know it, it's just back to the same old, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's one of those things too. You got to watch where it's like, I didn't hit my goals today, but then the question becomes, what am I doing tomorrow to make sure I hit those 5 things or those 3 things?
Well, okay, so there's some point where I think, okay, if it's consecutive where you're not hitting your goals, I think you need to, okay, if I can't figure out why, or if there's something there, let's lower them for a season, for a time, and say, okay, let's lower our goals for a little bit. Let's hit them again.
But what if it's, and let's disagree on this maybe.
Go ahead. Yeah.
But what if it's, I simply slipped into laziness. So I'm not getting up early enough to go to the gym.
Right.
So I don't win. I'm not getting up early enough to pre-do my food for the day. So I don't hit my macros. So then I don't. And then I don't win. And I don't win. And before you know it, a day turns into a week
right.
into
But then you're missing out 100% of your thing, right?
Correct.
Right. So what if you scaled it back to say, if I get 50%, 50% of your goal, you're going to do better. You know, even take 1 week and say, if I get 50%, that's a win. So if I go to the gym 3 days instead of 5, or 2 days instead of 4, right? Is that a win? Well, that's better than 0 all day long. So now you're setting, okay, so I won. Okay, today, you know what? I knew I'm not feeling well, so I'm not going to get to the gym. And maybe I need rest, because that's also important. So maybe that's what I need right now.
Okay.
I'm not going to go today, but tomorrow I will.
Okay.
And then tomorrow you get up and you're like, you know what? I said I wasn't going to go, but today I will. And if I go today, then that's a win in the column. Win, bang, right? I said I wasn't going to prepare my food, but I don't really want to prepare all my food. I'll prepare half of it. Okay, well, 50% is better than 0% every time.
Okay, so what if...
But hold on, let me keep going with this for a little bit.
Keep going.
You hit 50, 50, 50. Okay, well, what if I got to 60?
Yeah.
Well, now let's hit it, 60%.
Yeah.
Well, let's go to 70, okay?
Yeah.
Well, once you start building back
you're
up,
about incremental.
I'm talking about, okay, you know what? Maybe you're feeling overwhelmed and you need to just take a step back and let's build back into this again, build that confidence up so that when you get going, you can keep going, right? And maybe 100 is just, it's hard right now and you're not quite ready to commit to that. Mentally, emotionally, maybe there's something else that's there. So you commit to 80. Like
logically that's right. Like for building that muscle back up, or building it in the first place, maybe you never had that muscle, but you're building it. But the thing that, like, in the back of my mind, where I'm just like, well, you can just stop being a little bee, get it together, and do your thing. Like, in your opinion, is there a place for that conversation?
Absolutely. So I have that conversation with myself very often, right? So there's a time and place for that. If you know yourself where you're just like, okay, you're just being a little bee, we'll keep it PG,
Mm-hmm.
and stop it, get up and go.
Yeah.
I have that conversation with myself often in the
Do you
morning.
get up?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, no.
Because I
Then
have that conversation sometimes, and then I don't get up.
no. Like for whatever reason, it takes whatever form you want. But like when my alarm goes off, usually I'm up before my alarm. I'm like I just want to sleep in past it, and I know full well that
We're
I'm,
very similar that way.
I'm up before my alarm, and I'm like I don't want to do it, right? And I know like in 2 minutes my alarm's gonna go off, and I don't want to hear it, and I'm waiting for it to hit that snooze button, and then I'll hit that snooze button, and instantly it'll be like, David Goggins, stop being a little bee, get up and go do it, right? And like, okay, well now I gotta go, right? And like,
Yeah.
and it's like if I want it, and the one quote that always, and I don't know if it's a quote or what,
Yeah.
one thing that drives me every time, if I want what I've always gotten,
Yeah.
go back to bed, get what you've always got, or you can change and go after what you really want. And this year,
insanity is doing this.
and this year, my goal is massive action. Interestingly enough, that has been the biggest challenge I've found this year, is to actually do those things. The habits I've had leading into last year
Yeah.
have also become like just crazy difficult.
Interesting.
Like
See,
like
and so what I believe, and you can say this is the devil or you being lazy or call it whatever you want, but what I call it is what Ryan Stewman calls it. So Ryan Stewman has a saying. He calls it the force of average,
okay,
and he says the force is average. The force of average is after everybody, and our job is to do whatever we need to do to not let the force of average get us.
right,
And of course, I'm paraphrasing because he'll talk about it way better than you can Google it, whatever. But to me, in my head, every time I talk like that or listening to you talking about that, I'm like 100% it's harder because the force of average is trying to get you because you know you're made for more. And so the second someone raises their hand and says, "Oh, I'm made for more," the force of average comes after you and says, "No, you need to be mediocre like everybody else."
the force of average. That's an interesting one, right? You know, it just, yeah, like I think I've lived my life in such a way where I've been average or below average
Yeah.
for so long, and I think that's been acceptable. Like everybody
They
just
want you to be.
accepts
They
it, right?
want you to be.
Right, and it's fine. And like you're doing average, right?
Yeah.
And even now, going above and beyond,
Yep.
and trying to better, right? And I've
Yep.
had this, and an incident happened today where somebody's like, "Well, I didn't want Jeremy to know about this because it's." And I don't know 100% why, but they went to somebody else because they didn't want me to know about what they were thinking. Meanwhile, I've been talking with them for a while about this topic, about real estate,
Yeah.
and I've been helping them for a while with this. But when it came down to it, they're like, "I didn't want him to know." I'm like, "Well, why
Because they
would
were
you?"
worried about you judging them? Or?
Yeah, right. And I'm like, "Well, why would you worry about that, right? Like, realize
Especially you, you're like the least
I'm here to
person.
help, like, and I'm here to be there for you, and yet, but it's like, you know what? There's also a time where, you know what? I think, and I have also been outspoken on things at times where I'm like, you know what? Like, grow, like,
Yeah.
go above, right? Because when people settle too much and they're settling and they're dropping, and you issue a challenge like, why don't you like rise up, right? And at times I've been outspoken about that, and that's
Yeah.
part of it.
But that's part of who you are. Like you're not going to change who you are just
Yeah.
because it'll make someone comfortable. Again,
Right.
force of average, mediocrity coming back in.
Yeah.
Oh, just keep it quiet. Don't be outspoken. Don't talk about it.
Yeah. And you know what? It's interesting how much that actually comes up. And that's so interesting that you say it that way. It's just like that how much just this last week, how much I've dealt with people who are just like, let's just hold on. We're gonna just maintain. We're gonna keep
Yeah.
oh, this is what I want. This is what I've always had. I'm good, right? And like
That I'm good. That's
and,
why the book is called Good to Great.
yeah, and that's where I kind of I finally have said like, you know what, I awesome for you, and like I hope that it works for you, and I hope
Yeah.
you're happy with that, and that's all. Like
Yeah.
I have no issue with that. Like a lot of people are happy there, right?
But are you truly happy? And this is something I'm paraphrasing Gary Vee on this, but he says, if you're really good, if you're that guy who's on three beer league softball teams, and you're good at 50 grand, and you're really good, like really good, with that, awesome. Live your best life. But if you say you're good, but you're really not, that's where the problem is. So you really need to examine yourself, and I think circling all the way back, that's where your do message comes in.
But that's where I think that whole humble thing comes in. Is like, oh, I don't want to be one of those greedy people going right, and that's the other side that I've heard.
But what if I want to be greedy?
And I don't know. It depends
Greedy,
on what.
greedy is a bad word, but what it's describing is working hard and getting rewarded.
Right. Yeah. We often, and where we are very Mennonite, very cultural is the lust of money, or
Yeah.
the thought
In
of
this,
money.
where you and I live, for
Yeah.
sure.
That's like frowned upon to some degree. Yet everybody wants to be that one that has it, right? But that those that have it, we look at them and say, oh, in public, we're like, man, those people, they have more money than they know what to do with. They should just give it away and blah, blah, and everything.
I personally think that's garbage.
I do too. We're, like, that's where socialism comes in, and like trash, right? So let's be honest,
Now
right?
we're
Like,
gonna get some hate.
oh, now you know what? New is coming one day, but no, but like that's where, like, you know what? I work hard for what I have. I work very hard to get it. I try to make sure that anybody I work with, I am invested in them. I try to make sure that I'm doing the best I can.
Yeah.
Now there are those that I know I've messed up and I haven't done that, and it has happened, and I like, oh man, those are the ones that get me. But for the most part, more than often than not, by a large margin, I give everything I can to make sure that I can give everything to my clients, to whoever I work with.
I think for me, the two things that I think about on that are, I always try and leave people better than I found them. People
Yeah, absolutely.
better than I found them. And number two is, I'm not always going to do right by you because I'm human, but I'm going to do my very best to do the right thing by you.
Yeah.
Love and beyond.
Yeah.
Now, again, I'm not perfect. That doesn't mean I'm going to nail it every time, but I'm going to try.
Yeah.
And like you, there are people I know that I haven't made that to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry about that, but it gives you those lessons for next time, right? And what I think is, too many people sort of stay in that middle ground of like, I'm gonna do just what's expected. I'm gonna stick with what I know. I'm not gonna grow. I'm not gonna get uncomfortable. I'm not gonna be afraid, because all those things take courage.
Yeah.
And courage takes work.
It does. And let's be honest, some of those times we need to make a plan. Like, just because you're in a place, that doesn't mean like working 9 to 5 and punching the clock, doing whatever.
Yep.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if that's where you want to be,
I'm in that group
right
now.
So are you there forever?
I don't know. Probably not.
Probably not, right?
Probably not.
But
I'm gonna give 110% while I'm there,
absolutely,
because the owner of our company deserves it.
absolutely, and you can invest everything you can. And so you're also looking at, okay, how can I expand my life outside of this, right?
100%. I'm sitting here with you is one of those things,
Right.
or it's a piece of it.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things where you're thinking, how can I expand? How can I grow? Where am I? Where's the opportunity? And also, something's going to present itself one day. And you're like, okay, let's build on this. Let's build on this.
But then, are you the person that can seize that opportunity, physically, mentally, emotionally, etc.? And then number two, are you looking for those opportunities to say yes to them?
Yeah.
Because sometimes you're not looking for an opportunity, but it presents itself. And you're saying yes.
Yeah.
And so I try and say yes to things although my kids might say differently. But I try to say yes to things. So when you're like, hey, let's do a podcast, which I know we've been talking about, that's a little bit different. But as a vague example, you say, hey, let's do a podcast together. I say yes. I don't think about it.
Yeah.
Because maybe it's one episode and it's terrible. Maybe it turns into thousands of episodes and we get known worldwide. Or something in the
You never
middle.
know what's going to happen.
We don't know, but it's an opportunity.
It's an opportunity.
And you've geeked out and you've invested in some cool equipment and we get to sit here and hang out. And like we always joke, we're going to have these conversations anyways. Why not just do them with other people listening?
Yep. Have you noticed since last time, nothing's changed?
No. For the first time. So we are on, ladies and gentlemen, listening, ladies and gentlemen, jury, we are on episode number 7 for the first time in 7 episodes, which is 3 or 4 months. Every single time I came down here to the studio, something was different. This is the first episode we've recorded, and everything is exactly the same.
I think I'm finally happy with for now.
I like the layout here too. It gives us enough room to hang out. We've got spaces for other things. I meant to use the gimbal this time. I didn't.
That's okay.
Next time. But I think that this conversation, one of the things that I've also thought about, because one of the men that I respect greatly on the internet is Tim Cannon. So much so I have him tattooed on or at least a quote of his. But something he's talked about a little bit on social this past couple of weeks is most people make resolutions December 31st for January 1. And by now, something like 70% have given up.
Right.
And his message has been, cool, you gave up. Start tomorrow.
Right.
Get back on the horse. Get back to those resolutions. And of course, a lot of what he does is physical. So he's like, get back to the gym like you said you would. You quit, but you can start again.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we were talking about, or the main thing we were talking about with this do concept, taking control of what you can do. Do what makes you happy. Do the gym. Do the thing. If you made resolutions, if you made goals, like you and I make goals, we don't make resolutions because those I believe they're dumb. But we make goals for the year. If you've already started backsliding on those, let the force of average creep in, start tomorrow. Recommit. And I think I don't know who said it, but doing big things in life takes a daily commitment. You have to get up and commit tomorrow and the next day and the next day. It's not a one-time. That's why a lot of people think resolutions are dumb, because it's a one-time thing.
It's a one-time thing. Yep. And even now, like I'm going through this, I don't know what you call it, workbook or whatever and it's about my goals for the year, and it's breaking it down. And one of the questions is always like, why? And what can you do? What's your 5-year goal? And how can you do it in 6 months?
Yeah.
And it's like, how can you do
Collapsing
it? And how can you do it in a year? And what do you need to do in a year to reach your goal? Your 5-year goal. What do you have to get done this year?
I don't know who the book is by or anything, but I'm fairly confident they ripped that off from Elon Musk.
Oh yeah?
Or Jeff Bezos, one of the two. I think it's Elon Musk. But he asks the question all the time. He's like, oh, you think it's going to take 6 years? How can I do it in 6 months?
Right. Okay.
Like,
that could be.
And 6 years and 6 months might be a big gap. But like, if someone tells Elon it's going to take a year, he's like, cool, how can we do that in 6 months? Like, how can we kind of thing?
Well, and I found it interesting, actually, when we were talking, like some of them, 5 years very hard to do in 6 months for the most part, right?
Of course.
But my year goal, and I looked at it, I'm like, he's like, how can you do that in 6 months?
Yeah.
And I was like, man, what I'd have to do is like hyper focus and do this and absolutely commit. I bet you I could do it, because that big goal.
So why don't you?
Well, that's what it got me thinking as I'm writing this, right? And I was working through it today.
Just so you know, I've been thinking about the questions. So why don't I?
Yeah.
In a couple of areas of my life.
Okay.
And so that's why I pose it to you.
Yeah.
Because it's something I've been thinking about.
Well, and that's what the trouble was as I was going through. It's like, man,
because you know
this isn't that hard.
Because you know, doing this work, you do this work, you collapse time, you get the result.
Yeah.
Even if you don't collapse time, you do the work, you're gonna get the result.
Yeah.
So why don't? And that's for all of you out there in radio land too, or YouTube land. Like, if you know you can do the work and get the result, why don't you?
Yeah. Because it's easy.
What's easy?
Not doing it.
Not doing it.
Not doing it is easy, right? Like, so it's
Yeah.
it's easy not to do it, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, and it's very easy to make a plan.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder to execution it. And
Yeah.
and that's where I'm diving in with this and took that massive action of, I was like, okay, and I looked at it.
Yeah.
Before, like even right after I hired the coach today, I was looking at my stuff. I'm like, you know what? I got my systems in place. I got this in place. I got this in place.
Yep.
And I was looking at my goals. I'm like, man, like if I really push, I could crush this, right? Now, my goals are way bigger than they ever have been in the past. Double my highest goal, roughly, almost double, right?
Yep.
And I'm like, I can do this though. Like, this is not crazy.
Yeah. But you have, so there are people out there who are going to listen to this. They're going to go, that's great for you, Jared. You have real estate, like you're a real estate agent. You know what your goals are. You know what your financials are. Like, you know that if you do X work, chances are good you're going to get Y result. Like, there's a direct correlation there.
Yeah.
You have a path set. It's just, are you willing to do the massive action to get the result that you personally want? Because you have big goals.
Yeah.
But someone's out there going, I have this goal, but I don't have a path. What do I do?
Reach out is first one, right? Like, we can help you with setting that up. There are different things in place. If you have a goal of achieving something,
Yep.
there is going to be a way to get there.
Mhm.
Now, you have to probably reverse engineer that. Okay, let's say
To the stupid.
to the stupid, right?
Yeah.
This is what your goal is. Okay. Well, what do you have to do that? Well, you want to do whatever it is, right? Break
Yeah.
it down. Break it down.
You
break
want
it
to do
down.
a
Break it down.
26-mile marathon, which I hate running.
Yeah.
But if you want to do a 26-mile marathon, right, you're not going to go, I've never run before. I'm going to do 26 miles tomorrow. It's not how
Unless
that
you're
works.
David Goggins.
Yeah, that's a different deal. Hey, right. But typically, the average person is not going to wake up tomorrow and go, I'm going to run 26 miles.
Yeah.
Right? No, you're going to go, how do I do a kilometer or a mile, depending on where you listen to this. But I'm going to do a kilometer today.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to do 2.5. Then I'm going to work my way up.
Yeah.
And before you know it, I'm at the 26 miles. And, you know, Bob's your uncle, you've got a marathon under your belt, etc., etc. But I think it's that reverse engineering part. So one of the things that I think a lot about on being honest is I have a household revenue goal.
Right.
Right? Because I don't have my own business. I'm not independent, sort of,
Right.
so to speak, kind of like you are. But I have this revenue goal to double my household revenue in 2024. I personally don't know how I'm going to get there. Okay? But what I can do, going back to do, is I can write down several ways that I can get there. Potential.
Yep.
Potential ways I can get there. I can look for odd jobs. I can look at other opportunities on the internet on how to monetize different things. Right? And I can, most importantly, be open to opportunity. So, a good example of that, and this is maybe not an example, but just a thought I've had today, something that happened to me was, God, this is my belief, God is going to put things in your way. He's going to put these what I'm going to call boulders in your way that are so big and glaring you in the face that you have to take notice. If you don't take notice, you're kind of an idiot.
Right.
Right? And so I had something today. I'm not going to say anything about it now because I don't know where it's going to go. But I had something that happened today and yesterday where it was the same thing coming across my desk. Or, sorry, coming across my face twice.
Right.
Same thing 2 times. And it's an opportunity. So the first time I said no to it. Second time it came across my desk, I was like, I should probably check this out.
Yeah.
Right? So, if you have big goals, whether they're monetary, whether they're physical, like going to the gym kind of things, if something comes across as an opportunity, like maybe you got a buddy that's like, dude, we should start running together. Like, nah, I don't like running. It's like, no, dude, we should start running together. Maybe that's God coming to you and going, giving you exactly what you need. You know, it's that
Right.
old joke of the guy drowning and
Absolutely.
you know, in one boat comes
Like
by.
said 3, 4.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then he dies and goes to heaven and he says, God, I thought you were going to save me. God goes, I sent you 3 or 4 opportunities to be saved. And you didn't take them.
Yeah.
What's the matter with you? You know? And so I think sometimes those things come across our desk or come across our life. And we're like, nah, I'm going to wait for the right opportunity. Or, nah, it's not for me. Maybe it is for you. You just need to say yes.
So how do you know if it's for you?
You don't?
No, I think you do. If it lines up with your why, if it lines
Whoa.
up with who you are, where you want to go, with your purpose,
I'm gonna
take
write that down.
notice. If it doesn't, it could be a distraction. I think that's something that's you got to know your why. You got to know what your purpose is. If it lines up with that, take notice of it. If it doesn't, I think it's maybe time to let that one die off and go.
Dude, I love that. So I'm just going to run that back for you.
Yeah.
If it lines up for your why, it's for you. If it doesn't, it's a distraction. That was pure gold. I wish we had like Brad Lee's dropping bombs where I could
Yeah.
give you a
Boom.
bomb.
Yeah.
Because that was good. Because thinking about this opportunity that came across, and again, we'll talk about it maybe on a different episode.
Yeah.
It does line up with my why.
There you go. There's the reason why you got to take notice of it.
And it came across twice.
Well, there you go. And
One
we're
time-
talking about it now. So, I mean, that's like 3rd time's the charm, man. And now you got this. So,
Yeah. So but that's really, really good because how many opportunities come across our desk because we're open to saying yes that don't line up with our why, but we sometimes say yes to them because we're yes guys, not in a bad way, but in the way of we just say yes to things and see where it goes.
yeah. So, interesting enough, we've been talking now about how much about looking for opportunities, right? So, as I was going through my goals, as I was going through all this stuff, and you're writing out, and the one thing you can see on all of mine is look for the opportunity.
Oh,
And that exact wording was on
Look at that.
on everything. On like I have 3 that was like my main goals, right?
yeah,
And look for the opportunity
yeah.
was the one thing. Like, how am I going to achieve this goal? Keep my eyes open. Look for the opportunity. Look for that opportunity.
I love that.
And because often we could just miss it
Yeah,
and it's right there. And you know what? I had one that I'm working on right now, and I thought part of me was like, it's a waste of time. Don't bother.
yeah.
But the other part of me was like,
Do it.
it's an opportunity. Do it. Like, right? It's an opportunity.
Yeah.
You never know, right? And so I did. And
Yeah.
this one might lead to a big outcome now, later. It might have residual effect for many years to come because of this one opportunity. But I took that
But
action.
I was gonna say you have to raise your hand and say yes.
Yeah, and that's just it. You know what? It took making that phone call and being like, hey, here we go.
Yeah.
Let's take that opportunity.
So, as we wrap up, let's use that as our wrap up. Here, 'cause
Absolutely.
I finally looked at the time today, so
I don't have to flag you down.
no. So, as we close out, do what you can, take control of what you can, make those extra calls, say yes to the opportunities, rediscover your why, relook at your why. If those opportunities line up with your why, do it. If not, it's a distraction, move on. And guys, as always, look for the opportunity, be great. And if Jeremy and I can help you in any way, feel free to DM us. Leave
Absolutely.
comments on the episodes. We're here for you, and we want you to win. So
Great
we're big
things
guys,
ahead.
Big things ahead.